snip snip this video. Justin, you know what that's all about. Snip this video into 2 bits, part 1 and part 2. Happy Homebrew Wednesday, everybody. I'm drinking Brent Spartan's SJ Pour contribution, and it's a very lovely beer. There's his label there. He's from South Coast Brewery. Okie dokie. The Brewers Wall of Fame has got a few more photos up there. This one is Steve Zeros. He's from Texas. And this is Roger McCord, aka Wrench256, so check out his channel. And most of you will know who these funny buggers are. This is Tiny and Kizbar. So cheers guys for downing your t-shirts, downing your beer, putting on your t-shirts and chucking me a photo so I can chuck it up on the wall. And all you guys can sit there and watch over my shoulder and help me brew. So, cheers, much appreciated. If anybody wants to buy a t-shirt, you know where to go, www.redbubble.com/buy for another one, I think, something like that. Anyway, the link is down the bottom if you want to grab a t-shirt and get your photo up on the wall. Big shout out to Andrew Childs, aka Behemoth Brewing. Chubby, close your ears, Behemoth Brewing. Andrew will buy you a drink when he catches up here in Auckland. But anyway, Andrew also works at iMake, and so he is involved in the distribution of homebrew supplies and equipment and ingredients to all the homebrew stores around New Zealand. And he is also responsible for bringing these yeasts out to us, the Mangrove Jack yeasts. He dropped these off, whoops, he gave these yeasts to me. I've got a Burton Union yeast. I have a Newcastle Dark Ale yeast, a US West Coast, a Universal Beer yeast, which will be interesting. Apparently it can ferment really high and really low temperature ranges. A British Ale yeast, and also a Belgian Saison. So, there's a few more. There's a Belgian Ale yeast as well. Excuse me. A wheat beer yeast, and a cider. But these were all... Andrew gave these to me. Thank you, Andrew. This is very much appreciated. When I caught up with him at the Craft Beer College, the Beast That Is Yeast course. And here's a tiny little snippet of that.
The Heller's base is what Mike has used to make all the beers. So make sure that you keep some of that beer right throughout the tasting if you want to use it as a reference point.
So the yeast packets now look like this. So Andrew has designed up the artwork and named them. An interesting thing here, this little number here, M44. Not a lot of people know what that means. Well, actually a few people know what it means, but not a lot. So, when all these yeasts have got a different little number on them, and those numbers are related to specific things that sometimes just Andrew knows, but it's like a little Easter egg. Surprise of what it is. So, yeah. The course was great. I will put more of the course in part 2, and actually all of part 2 will just be about the course and just be about Mike from Panhead, who was hosting the course, along with Steph and Phil. Purely just to try and keep this Homebrew Wednesday nice and short. I don't want to get it too big. So if you're interested in a little bit of the talky that was going on at the course, I filmed a little bit of the intro on it. I didn't film the whole thing because that would be giving away all the course secrets. So if you want to do one of those courses, you should keep your eyes out for it in the Wellington area and do one. Or wherever you are, try and find a course like that and do it, because getting a whole group of beer geeks together talking about the same subject, even if it's just a tasting, and what you taste compared to what the next door neighbour tastes, is amazing. And what you learn is amazing. I learned that a wheat beer, the yeast that goes into a wheat beer, is responsible for 50% of the wheat beer taste. So I could make a wheat beer with malt and it would taste like a wheat beer. Well, 50% of it would taste like a wheat beer. And that's playing around with his yeasts. The beast of yeast was all about all these different yeasts, well, actually 6 of them, being put into the same base wort, and then we tasted them and worked out what the difference was and what the different phenols were, the esters that were coming off it, the mouthfeel. Between one yeast and another yeast, there's a totally different mouthfeel on the same wort, and that was amazing. The Saison had a really nice oily mouthfeel. It was beautiful. The Belgian Ale, I think, had a great mouthfeel as well, and then some of the other ones were thinner. So it's well worth experimenting and doing things like that. Okay, I have been building temperature controllers left, right and centre. Obviously it's cold here, people want to control their beer, so been making heaps of them, faster than the stock can come into the country. I've been putting them together and racing them out the door. I also finished putting together a big 6-channel temperature controller unit for Mike at Panhead. And these are to control his 5 2,000 litre fermenters and 4,000 litre cold water tank. So it's mounted up on the wall. There's a little pic of it. That's the little tiny thing off to the side. The big interesting things in the front is the boiler and the mash tun. He is getting ready to brew tomorrow. Council, I think, sign off. So really keen to start seeing some brewing coming out of that place. Mike did some wonderful beers at Tuatara, and I'm really interested to taste more. We had a storm. That was big. We had 220 km/h winds whipping through the country, coming from the south where the -40-degree polar caps were. They were getting sucked up in the wind and just shooting straight up and hitting the tropical bit up further north behind us, and this tropical bit came down and this cold bit came and they went thunk. And of course the cold air does what cold air does, and the hot air does what hot air does. 220 km/h that wind was travelling. Straight at people's windows, straight at people's trees, straight at the Murphy's Law flag. Look at this poor sight for an Irish flag. Oh yeah, you have to jump up there and replace that little bugger. But yeah, it was pretty hectic. Luckily our place, we didn't get any damage. We had a couple of little trees fall over, but they didn't damage anything. Work colleague had a couple of roof tiles blow off. My boss had a trampoline disappear. Well, he found it. It had crashed through the next door neighbour's fence and dented their car. So, should have left the kids sitting on it, holding it down. There was one house in Stokes Valley had its roof blown off. Wasn't Grant Baker's, but thankfully. But just one house, random roof gone. Garages blow in. The foreshore looks like a mess. There's just driftwood, trees, small boats, large boats, broken things all over the place. It was spilling out over to the road. The trains, the tracks, from Hutt Valley all the way to Wellington, which is the only way to get into Wellington by train. The train goes along right next to the ocean. And the ocean lapped up and undermined all the retaining stone that was underneath it, so the train tracks were just floating in the air. So that meant commuters had no way of getting into Wellington. So that sort of stuck, made the traffic, stink. So they were frantically trying to fix that. But yeah, exciting times. So that's enough from me. Cheers. Have yourself another.